Hey everyone, Mark here from the windowcleaningstore.com. Today's video is going to be a guide on buying used pure water window cleaning systems. Now this system here on the far right is an EcoCart, brand new from Hydrosphere Innovation, 2024. Over here we have a used system. It's about a year and a half old. We don't actually sell used systems here. This belongs to a customer of ours. He just dropped it off. We did a little bit of maintenance tweaking on it, getting it ready for the season. Now, you might be in the market for buying a pure water system, but you don't really have the cash to go full brand new. And you will see on various places on Facebook and whatnot, people selling their used systems. Maybe they're no longer in the business, or maybe they've upgraded to a bigger system or whatever. So there's a lot of deals out there, but you don't really know what you're going to be getting, and you might not know what a fair price is. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ticking off 5 main points to look for when buying a used system to make sure that you're getting a good deal. We're also going to wrap it up at the end of the video. You're going to want to watch to the end, where I'm going to help you come up to what is a fair price. So starting off, point number 1, you want to know what the seller bought the system for new back whenever they did. Not what it's new, like worth new now in 2024, because let's face it, water-fed systems do not increase in value over the years. They only just go down. So if they bought the system 4 or 5 years ago, you want to know what they paid for it pre-tax back then, brand new. If they have any paperwork to show it, to prove it, great. If they tell you, they've had it for a couple of years, keep in mind that people's memories aren't great. Could be 2 years, could be 3 years. But you want to know what they paid for it right off the bat, and because you're going to want to be obviously paying a fair bit less than that. But number 2, the thing that you want to know about a used pure water system is the filter health life. Now, on a multi-stage system, you've got pre-filter, RO, DI. What you'll see a lot of times in people's advertisements, they'll say something like, well, the last time I used it, it was measuring 0 TDS coming out. Or, I just hooked it up, it's measuring 0, it's ready to go. Or maybe it's measuring 2 or 3. You might have to change the resin or whatever. Now, if they're giving you that measurement, I can tell you 99.9% of the time, they've taken a measurement from the output of the DI. Trust me when I tell you that that measurement means nothing when it comes to what's the health of this machine. Because the DI is not even doing the main work. On a system like this, it's this tall filter here, what's in this silver canister, that's the RO membrane. That's the most expensive filter and the one that's the real workhorse. So you could just recently have changed the DI. This thing is going to measure 0 TDS. It's going to measure like a brand new machine. But it might only do that for a short period of time if the RO is already going bad. So, like I said, the measurement out here means nothing. What you're going to want to do is, on all systems that have multi-stage filters, you're always going to have somewhere on the system a tube that goes from the output of the RO into the input of the DI. The DI is only meant to do a final polish. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have them take a measurement, or if you're seeing the unit in person, you're going to want to take that tubing out of the inputting fitting on the DI. You want to take a measurement of what the RO is producing out of this tube and compare it to what's coming out of the tap. So if the tap going into the system, let's say, is measuring 200 parts per million, and what's coming out here, the goal really is, ideally you want to buy a system that is producing, the RO is producing 90% reduction or better. So if this is, like I said, 200 parts per million going into the system, 90% would be measuring about 20 or less. If it's measuring 20 or less, it's a pretty good buy. If it's measuring, if it's only reducing by 85% or so, keep in mind that you could still buy the system, but you will be replacing the RO pretty quick. If you want to have a system that you want to buy and you don't have to worry about dealing with the RO for a good, for the season at least, definitely you want 90% reduction or better. Now, checkpoint number 3 is you're going to want to know about changing the filters, whether or not you can get them anywhere, or that's what they call non-proprietary, or do you actually have to go back to the manufacturer of the cart in order to change those filter, or to a dealer. Now, in the case of the EcoCart, it's all non-proprietary filters, so it's very easy to get replacements. This is just your standard 5 micron, 10-inch pre-filter. it blocks chlorine and any physical particles in the water. So it's a carbon filter and a sediment filter combined. The RO, you can get it from any reputable window cleaning supplier that sells ROs for multi-stage systems. You can also find some on Amazon or some other places, provided that it's a low, extra low pressure or extra low energy RO membrane should be fine. The DI, again, any reputable window cleaning supplier will have the proper DI. You want a mixed bed ion exchange resin. And you're going to want to get an idea for what the cost of the replacement is going to be, even if it's just non-proprietary. Now, typically, the filters, the pre-filters, just a standard one, is about 15 bucks. There's about $30, $25 to $30 worth of resin in here. So already consider yourself in your head that you're going to be shelling out, 45, 50 bucks right off the bat for your pre and post filters. And, ROs can be anywhere on average around $400 and up. Now, checkpoint number 4 is you want to make sure that the used system has no issues with water running through it, no leaks or anything like that. Now, normally a multi-stage system such as this, which is, tall and narrow, it's usually best to run these systems lying down horizontal. Make sure you're doing it on a flat, smooth surface like the driveway or sidewalk or something like that. Because if you run this on the lawn, where there could be some tall grass, it's very difficult to tell if it's leaking, or even if it is leaking a little bit, to tell where it's leaking. If you run this on some nice, flat, dry ground, you'll be able to easily see if there's any leaks. And checkpoint number 5 is the overall integrity of the cart itself. Are the wheels okay? Are they falling off? How about the brackets holding the individual filter housing? Sometimes you'll notice that they get rusted out and it's just kind of hanging there, flopping about, hanging by just one bolt when it should be held by 2 bolts or something like that. How are the fittings? Are there any cracks? Again, tying into the last checkpoint, if there's any leaks, it could be that there's cracks in where the tubing goes into the fittings. Sometimes you don't have to be worried too much if it's leaking around the thread area of a fitting. It simply means you just take the fitting out, put on some fresh plumber's tape, put it back in, everything should be fine. But obviously if you have cracked plastics or anything like that, the fittings will have to be replaced. So take that into consideration. How is, if it has a pressure gauge, is the pressure gauge actually working? Any dials on it? Does it seem to be functioning properly? That kind of thing. And so now for the wrap up, how to negotiate a good price when purchasing a used water-fed system. So knowing what they paid for it brand new back of the day, pre-tax, right off the bat you can take off a third of the price. So 33.3%, just subtract that from whatever they paid. Of course, do this in your head or off to the side. You don't have to do your math in front of them. And then you're going to want to start to add up all the costs of the things that you're going to have to do to this right away. I'm pretty much confident that you're going to want to change out the pre and post filter pretty soon after purchasing. So right away, let's just say 50 bucks, take another 50 bucks off there. If the RO is fine, but you're going to need it somewhere down the road, like maybe at the end of the season, maybe take that into consideration, take off another 100 bucks or so. Like I said, if it's producing 90% or better reduction, just the RO, you'll probably be able to last a season with it. So you won't be able to take off too much. If it needs any other parts, such as new wheels, add up the cost. The wheels are going to cost you anywhere from 20 to 25 bucks each. So you can take that off as well. Any fittings, when it comes to fittings, just think about maybe an average of $10 per fitting. So if you see 3 or 4 fittings, or even 5 fittings that are going to be needing replacement soon, that's another 50 bucks you can take off. And then, of course, finally, you have to count for your time. If you're going to have to spend a weekend getting this thing all up in tip-top shape, ready for the season, what's your time worth? Don't be afraid to knock off another 100 or 2 for your labor time just to get this thing up and running. And in the very end, if you come to a price in your head and it's way off from whatever the person's selling it for, I always say to anybody, if it doesn't feel right, just don't go for it. If you really, really want it, and maybe you're not getting it for the price that you were hoping for, but you can of course discount your labor a little bit and say, okay, this is going to be a project, a labor of love kind of thing. I don't mind doing the work, but again, in the end, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Anyway, I hope these tips will help you buy smart. Like I said, I don't sell used systems. I don't sell used systems. I sell new systems. I'm only giving you this information because if you're a customer of mine, obviously at some point or another, you're going to come to me for the filters. So I'm just happy that you're happy, and happy window cleaners coming into my store is always a good thing. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now.